Welcome back to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the doctor's tea hotter than your morning coffee.
And give you the insider scoop on the wild worlds of credentialing, provider drama, and everything they don't teach you in med school.
I'm Shannen, and she's Nyleen, two credentialing pros with front row seats to the chaos, looking to make you a part of it. Yes, we want you to engage in spilling this tea with us. We need your love and likes, and we want to know what you think too. Look for us, please, on LinkedIn, Instagram, and yes, baby, even TikTok.
Yes, we love to see your love. From fraud scandals to burnout breakdowns and why your favorite surgeon might actually be banned from 5 hospitals.
Honey, we've got the gossip and the practical advice to keep you out of trouble and ahead of the game.
So grab your coffee, your compliance checklist, and maybe a lawyer, and let's get into it.
Welcome back to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the tea as always. And today we have a very special guest with us today, Dr. Victor Vargas. He is Chief Medical Officer, Certified Physician Executive. He specializes in credentialing and governance leadership, and he has just been taking over with his articles, with his opinions. And when I just seen it, I said, I have to connect with him and we have to get him on the show. And he is here with us today. Thank you, Dr. Vargas, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
All right, Dr. Vargas. So can you just tell us a little bit how long you've been in medical staff world and when you decided to make the transition from actively practicing medicine to healthcare leadership?
Give us the tea.
Yeah, so I've been in the healthcare industry since I was like 19 years old in the military. I was a medic, and that sparked the interest in pursuing a career in medicine. And it's been, full blast since then. I really got introduced into the credentialing space when I arrived at Health First. This is the job that I'm in now. I was on the credentials committee, then became the credentials chair, and was really surprised about the amount of technical work that happens behind the scenes to get a provider, at the bedside. And then after I became the credentials chair, I took on a leadership role as the medical director for the hospital service. And then at that point, now I'm hiring physicians and I'm looking at CVs and, trying to really look at, is this the right cultural fit? Are they who they are? And then doing all the credentialing work that goes along with it. And it wasn't until about 7 years ago that I took on the role as the VP of Medical Affairs. And that's when my knowledge and interest really broadened at a system level on the credentialing and privileging space.
And so tell us about your team. Do you work with a medical staff professional services team? I'm sure that, there's some amazing people that help you out.
Yes, I have a phenomenal team, by the way. So Delane Christie is my systems director for medical staff services in the CVO. We have a team of about 11 ladies. They're all physicians. They're all female. So we have about 11 ladies on the team in all different levels of experience from new in the last year. And then we have ladies that have been there for 30 years. Delane's dual certified. I would tell you that she's taking my knowledge base from about 25% to maybe 80% because she's still my go-to person.
Oh my God. Who says that,
That's
Dr.
so
Vargas?
exciting to hear. This episode of Credentialing Chronicles is sponsored by Med Elevate Solutions, your partner in turning healthcare chaos into operational clarity. With deep expertise in ASC, hospital, or physician office operations, clinical workflows, and compliance, their team helps you work smarter, not harder. Learn more at medelevatesolutions.com, simplifying processes, amplifying outcomes, one facility at a time. So from your vantage point as a physician, what do you see, since now you talked about such a great team that you have? So what do you see as like the biggest misconception that hospitals and physicians have about medical service professionals and their credentialing teams?
This is a really good question. I would say the biggest misconception is that medical staff professionals are paper pushers, that they function like administrative assistants.
Or that we're secretaries.
And in reality, I'll be honest, when I first got introduced to our medical staff coordinator at one of our community hospitals, I kind of thought that was the role. And I can see why, because a lot of times the medical staff leaders, when they need work to be done, a letter to be sent out, they're going to the medical staff professional to do that work for them. So it starts to build like this, this reputation or this vision of that's what the role is. But in reality, I think, these are highly trained folks that look at licenses and verify, information to ensure that, the person that we are bringing into our organization is safe to take care of patients.
And really on top of that, making sure that the accreditation standards are followed, with respect to whatever's with your hospital. It sounds like you've educated yourself so much and you've really taken on this role. How do you think other CMOs, physician leaders, can kind of grasp that understanding, Dr. Vargas?
I take it back to the basics. It's just start having a conversation, sit down with your medical staff professional, get an understanding of what they do. And if you're not in leadership and you're a provider on the medical staff, ask to pull your file and have them walk you through your file and get an understanding of what it takes, what they're looking for. You'll be amazed. I think when I started just sitting down and trying to understand what they do day to day, I realized, they are truly trained professionals, and they're helping with patient safety, with liability from the organization. So just sit down and spend time with these ladies or gentlemen if there's guys on the team.
So I love that you mentioned patient safety, and something that Shannen and I always talk about is the patient always suffers. Like the patient is the one who receives the harm from when we start the credentialing, where they're the collateral damage. So what do you value from the credentialing process that is not really paperwork, but it's actually directly tied to the end, the operating room, for example, like the last person or the hospitalist that's touching that patient? How do you see the credentialing process work from when you see the file to when they touch a patient?
So from the time that we see the file, I would say that, that credentialing process truly looks through case logs to background checks to malpractice cases. And it really starts to paint the picture. And it paints a picture of safety. It paints a picture for us. Is this the type of person that we want, that's part of our medical staff? So does it fit the culture? And what we see downstream, we bring in what we feel is the right person. It's the right attitude, the right culture, the right competency for
they've made it through all those
to take care
interviews, right?
Exactly. And it's a holistic look. You're looking at really everything. Education, references, you're calling people. So it's a holistic approach.
Yeah, even hospital affiliations, calling. I know now a lot of them are pulled on the portals, but I always tell my staff there's nothing like calling the other hospital if you don't get it good on the portal and talking to the medical staff person and saying, tell me about this doctor. Can you do a verification for me? Because everything, is going to the portals now. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you, a funny thing is you got to trust the staff too. I think, at least my team, they've been doing it quite a while. And when they say, something just doesn't feel right, or, there's just something about this history, and I just tell them, just keep digging and let me know what you find. I'd rather take that extra step and ensure that we're really bringing in the right people.
So wait, can we spill some tea? So can you recall a time when a medical services professional raised a red flag and somebody didn't listen because they were like, no, we got to push this file through. So what was the impact of allowing that person on staff? And did you see any repercussions from it? And did they even make it past credentials?
Funny that you say that, because, it's almost like the bloodhounds, right? They'll get stuck on something, like there's something here. And we had one of my team members, they found some falsified case logs. And it's surprising because they don't really have a medical background. So they're like kind of flagging it. So they find out these case logs don't look legit, and they escalated it to us, to the physician leaders. And we started digging into it, asking for more, case log verification, because it just didn't look right. It was on like a Word document and not typical Excel spreadsheet that you can manipulate. Yeah. So lo and behold, it turns out it was made by the provider. And the cases that he stated he was doing, he did not have the competency to do. So we were able to block that. And I think had they not done that, what that would have led to is a physician on the medical staff, in this case a surgeon, stating he can do a certain surgery and then performing that surgery on a patient when they shouldn't. So, that was a great catch by the team.
Woo! Go MSPs.
Yes. I mean, that is a great catch. Just think about if that would have been the case down in Waco, with the doctor death situation, or, maybe, and, people were raising red flags. The medical staff professionals were raising the red flags all along, and they just weren't listened to. And so here's a good example of when they are listened to, what happens and what gets caught, right?
And I can understand sometimes facilities, there's a lot of pressure. We got to get someone in. We have patients that need to be seen. So there's that pressure, from above. But, you got to stand your ground. You got to trust your team, and you got to do the process right so that, you keep the patient at the forefront and safe.
And it really sends a message to the community, right? That we're not going to let, bad players in here. And I think the community wants to hear that more from hospitals saying, hey, we caught this. We were able to stop somebody from coming in here and hurting you.
Absolutely.
We're talking about value, right? So yes, physicians drive the income, right? They bring the cases to us. But in order to get qualified, safe physicians and practitioners on our staff, right, we need professionals like you very beautifully said to us. So what can you say, or what do you think we should do about hospitals and leadership undervaluing or underfunding medical services professionals? Because you have a staff of 11. Like how many? I'm just curious to see what's the size of your medical staff. How many physicians in allied health are on your staff?
Yeah, so just to bring that back a layer, we have 1,700 providers across 4 hospitals. But again, trusting my director, she did her assessment and said we are understaffed. And I would take that information, then I would present that to the executive leadership team to get more staff. So I definitely have to hand it to the leadership on the medical staff side to say we need more. This is not a space that you want to cut corners, because when you cut corners, the downstream effects are more expensive. So you really have to look at assessing the team size, assessing the number of providers you have in the staff, and then what's the rotation rate of providers coming on and off service as well, because you have locums coming in and out, and that takes up a lot of time as well. So you have to consider all of those factors.
Exactly.
You had talked about how you wanted to bridge this gap of knowledge about doctors knowing about medical services professionals and what we do. And we love that. And we thank you so much for being our advocate. So you mentioned something about where doctors can get education. So in your opinion, Dr. Vargas, where's the best place? I mean, other than, of course, listening to Credentialing Chronicles, but so where should physicians go? You have so many different places you can go for education. Where's one place that physicians should get to be educated on who is a medical services professional and what we actually do?
I mean, I would say right out the gate, just go to your local medical staff office in the hospital. That's probably the easiest and quickest way to do it outside of searching online, because you'll miss a lot of stuff online as well. So, and it's also good to have them pull your file and sit with you and go through the verification process and go through, what it took to, grant you privileges. So that's where I would start. At a training, I didn't know anything about credentialing and applications really until I got my day job. And when I became a physician, out of the military and having to apply for my own credentials and privileges, it's like, there's a lot into that I just did not know.
Yeah, no, I love the fact that you say sit with your medical staff professional with your file, because there's, even an NCQA standard says that there has to be transparency, that a provider, if they have questions, they can ask to look to be a part of their credentialing process. And I think, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever had a provider ask me to look at my file, at their file. And so I think that's such a great way to say, what are you collecting? What do I need to do? How can I assist? I mean, right? Have providers come into the office and sat with your staff, Dr. Vargas?
No, I would say that doesn't happen often. I've had providers ask questions about the process, and And I just say, come on down, let's talk about the process. I'll walk you through it. And it's usually because they're asking for additional privileges, or they're hiring a physician in their practice, so they want to understand how long it's going to take for them to get onboarded. So I try to take those opportunities to do some education.
And it must be good that you sound confident and that you are aware of the process, as intimate as you are, because then that gives them confidence to say, oh yeah, he understands it. Okay, let me get down there and talk to them and see what they need, right?
Yeah, I think once you get it, once you're informed, then you start to understand how do you fast track things, or where are the barriers that cause delays too.
That is empowering the medical staff office and all those medical services professionals. It's really empowering them to tell the doctors, like, listen, I know it's really annoying to type all this stuff all the time, but this is why, on a side note, I'd love for credentialing to be a course all physicians, all nurse practitioners and PAs have to take during school. And I think that is a big gap. I think we need to reach out to education systems once we take over the world. We need to go into the training, into residency programs, and really teach this, because they don't teach you this. And so now that we've talked about empowering the medical services professional, how giving them that empowerment, that ability to educate, how can that change the dynamic of the hospital oversight, and then ultimately really prevent more scandals or federal investigations to happen?
Honestly, I think the medical staff professionals are, centered to safety. They're that first gate into safety. So we have to allow them to practice their profession, but we also have to support it. And I think a lot of times people may have a hard time supporting it because they don't really understand the magnitude of what they do. And that's because of the outside pressures that are coming in behind them. We got to get 4 locums to cover our ER shifts, tomorrow. And everyone's trying to fast track that. So I think we have to really empower them. And it's also helpful to have physician leaders bring up the medical staff professional to the table, as opposed to sitting against the wall while everyone's on the boardroom exec table sitting there. Some may not like that, but Delane didn't like it. She's not one of those people that wants to be front and center stage, but over time I kind of had to pull her on because she's the expert. She truly is the expert, and I'm kind of like the supporting actor to that.
And that's so amazing that you allow her to shine. And I just want other medical staff leaders and executives and CMOs to hear that, because when you allow somebody to shine in their position, it really does help everybody, right?
That's one of the basics of leadership.
Yeah, definitely.
You got to get out of the way and let them do their thing.
That's the most beautiful thing I can tell you. Now, another part of our jobs, right, is combining the peer review process. And I know we really didn't touch base on that, but how do medical services professionals assist you in your peer review process at your facility?
Another great question, and Delane and I were talking about this morning. They help us quite a bit with the OPPE process, the FIPE process. They are engaged in our quality committee meetings. Now, they kind of lack the clinical piece of it, but they're there to hear and listen, what the dispositions are on peer review cases, and then ensuring that we're following our process based on our own bylaws to ensure that everyone's getting treated fairly.
Exactly. Just some of the cases, Dr. Vargas, right? The images in the hospital coming out, just all these crazy cases that come out. And I mean, what do you think to yourself? I mean, are you just like, how does that happen? Or, because it seems like you guys at your hospital are doing it right. You're investing in the team. You're, allowing them to shine. You're giving them the autonomy and the support that they need. And it seems like at these other kind of facilities that they maybe don't have robust teams like that. And maybe that's how we always just say, how do things slip through the cracks? And maybe that's one of the ways, do you ever think about that when you see that? Because I do. I go down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, I go down rabbit holes too. And I think, we live in Space Coast, Florida. I mean, I'm blessed that we have an organization that invests in this department. And I think about, hospital systems that, may not have the luxury of investing the way that we're able to here. So, it gets down to relationships and trusting people, trusting the team to do the work. And sometimes slow is fast. You got to slow down a little bit to ensure that you're doing the right thing so you can get the right person, at the bedside. But it's scary.
Looking ahead, where do you see the medical services profession and physicians? Do you see them becoming eventually fully aligned and respected and being able to empower each other? And how can we as Credentialing Chronicles then work with physicians like you? I mean, other than spending these minutes with you and you helping us out on LinkedIn and on all these platforms and keep supporting your medical services professional, how do you think, where can we reach out so we can then work together and collaborate and really grow this profession more?
Couple of things. I've been thinking about this as well. One of my early observations in the first NAMS conference that I went to was I think I was one of maybe 3 physicians in the whole conference. So that
shout out to NAMS.
Yeah, shout out to NAMS.
Make sure you post our video. Okay, sorry, Dr. Vargas, go ahead.
So all the medical staff professionals, they go to NAMS conferences. All the physicians go to Greeley and Horty to learn credentialing and privileging, credentialing and peer review. We got to learn together. There's got to be platforms in which you have medical staff professionals with CMOs or VPMAs or medical staff leaders learning the work together. You got to trust, I'm speaking to my fellow, physician leaders. You got to trust your team, listen to them when they're bringing up concerns. But then also for the medical staff professionals, you got to own it. You got to own the profession, be that leader, be the consultant to the medical staff, to the hospital with the knowledge that you have. And I think doing that in all the different areas over time, you'll start to see that synergy and people coming together.
I mean, confidence is half the battle.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I always try to shout out NAMS, but I think one of the beautiful things that NAMS did was providing the different certifications for medical staff professionals. And that did give the profession validity. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. And even now they're coming up with the certified provider enrollment certification, which again, hospitals, facilities think that payer enrollment is nothing. It's something to be done in a dark closet. And it's the number one thing, that establishes your contracts and gets your money in the door. And so I just love that NAMS, provides that. And then, having physicians like you said, are you going this year, 2025, Portland?
I am. I'll be there.
You got your ticket? Okay.
Got my ticket.
Yes. We can't wait.
We have the big pink tent. We're going to be recording there.
I'm going to the booth.
Yes, it's a big pink tent that we have, though, because, we have to keep it for the recording, area. So we have to have a little cover over it. You have to sign up and come over for one of our 5-minute interviews that we're doing with everybody.
All right, yeah, I'm going to stop by for sure.
Yeah. And then we're tagging. It's going to be amazing.
It sounds like a lot of fun. That's what.
What is the craziest situation that you've had to step in and say, no, I'm the CMO. I am telling you, we cannot allow this person, or we cannot do this, or, oh my goodness, they're trying to do what? So one little crazy tea story for our tea lovers.
Or two.
We've had cases in which a provider is applying for privileges. And, people have history. Like, you're young, you do dumb things, and occasionally it shows up in a police report. We get that. But if the behavior continues year over year over year, and you try to hide it, it just doesn't work out, And, a lot of times we get into a position in which we're really scrambling to get help. But we had to draw the line and say, this is just not the culture that we want to bring into the organization. So, even though I do get pressure from, service lines saying, hey, we have to get a provider in here ASAP, it's like, we just can't do it. It's just not worth the risk. So that's when I have to flex.
I feel like you're almost like the protector of the culture, because you've mentioned that several times in this interview about the culture and how you interview people can you talk about that? Because I love how it's almost poetic how you talk about it.
Honestly, it's the organization that I work in. Health First is really focused on cultures, our values. So integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence. So whenever I speak to any provider entering our medical staff or being hired by our organization, that's what we focus in on.
I just in this interview, I have felt that. So I love that. Whoever is that, let's get them on Credentialing Chronicles because other hospitals need to take note.
Listen, we need other organizations because, you know, if you love each other and you love the profession and you love your patients, that is going to be reflected from the time an application is submitted through credentials and then obviously through your governing body. And as a medical services leader, you want to make sure your doctors are engaged. You know, I had a CMO come visit our office and then actually I'm lying. It was a CEO who was hiring a CMO and he was like, how can I, get the doctors involved? And I was like, you got to have a good CMO. Like doctors are not going to care about XYZ. They got to have another doctor that's representing and not only supporting them, but supporting the structure, the entire facility and the culture that you want to promote within your medical staff.
In addition to that, one thing I also learned is the medical staff services is also that frontline experience to our organization. So what I tell my team is there's a service that you have to provide as well. And you have to exude that culture that we want to live in and project. So it kind of all comes full circle that way.
Do they get that in do they get that in the interview? Do you have questions about that when you're interviewing, doctors that are coming from New York and you're in Florida? So that's a different, approach to how things are done.
We do. I do. I talk about our culture. I talk about expectations, about, collegiality, being a member of the medical staff, expectations. This way they hear it at the interview process. When they get here, they hear it again. It's this constant, mantra. And listen, we're not perfect. We're still a work in progress. You have to undo a lot of past history. But as we continue to grow and move forward with new members of the medical staff, that's the type of work that we're doing.
Well, we're definitely going to, tag your hospital.
Absolutely. Tag your hospital, tag your medical services. Yes, absolutely. But also that department, apart from your recruiter or you, for example, giving them that interview, that first impression, that they are the director of first impressions, the way that they handle the physician is going to show or they'll handle their application. Likewise, we're the first ones that see your email address. So just saying, Dr. Ferrari, 200 miles per hour, or a Dr. Pumping Iron, that Gmail, really, we kind of know what kind of doctor you're going to be or what kind of provider you're going to be once you submit that application.
Med resident 6'9", you're like, oh, okay, you should change that for your professional emails. Yeah. Very good point, Nyleen. Very good point.
That's hilarious.
So likewise, both ways, we are the first introduction. And a lot of times, even now, it's the summer, everybody's onboarding residents. This is our very busy time. Great introduction to healthcare if you have a great medical staff office that can help those residents kind of make that transition. Like, okay, I know it's your first time getting your real job, but this is kind of what happens. And so we had a really good residency program at my facility. And I always really spent time, especially with the chief, help them, transition to when they get their new jobs. And then anyone that was coming in, spend that extra time with them. So having a great CMO like you, which we're all hoping for one day.
Yeah, you never really realize how important a CV is until you become a doctor going through credentialing. And then as the CV, the resume is the most important thing. They've never heard of month, year, until credentialing. But I just really am excited that you sat with us and spilled some tea with us today. Anything you want to wrap up with? Anything you want to let us know? Anything you got going on?
Well, I wrote that article that was published in SoMe so I was happy about that. The latest bombshell is Epic getting into credentialing, still trying to figure that out.
Well, can I tell you, they are not alone. So I also heard of another software out in the surgery center space that is getting into credentialing. So the reason is they're trying to make these platforms a lot more quote unquote inclusive. So it's a one-stop shop. And that's the selling point, is they want to expand their services to be only have one and then kind of offer it all. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yes, I emailed Delane this morning. I said there's a seismic shift going on in credentialing here, and that's the news with Epic. And we'll see what happens. I mean, you need the automation. You need things to be a little bit more seamless and smooth, but we still have to, continue with the basics. All right. You got to have a good process in place, and you got to still scrub charts. You still got to look at backgrounds.
And that's where, I've been doing this, maybe 25 years, but I hear everybody so excited about AI, and I'm like, my talk to text cannot even put the right word, sight or site, it says SITE instead of sight, for seeing. And I just think, I don't want AI in credentialing and to take over credentialing, because imagine the things that will get through the cracks that are already not getting through the cracks. Like, medical staff professionals are needed regardless whether AI is there to help and assist them, great. But even when the software companies come out and I am advocate, for some software companies, but you need to have a person there to support the software. The software does not do everything. And I think that's some people, when they sell it to some of these hospitals, organizations, the people that are buying it forget to kind of ask that, well, how do we manage it all once you leave, once, the first payment goes through, So, I mean, that's just something to think about. Well, I mean, I guess we'll end on that note, right? The software AI, revolution that's going on. Yeah, more to come. All right. Well, I thank you. We thank you so much for being here, Dr. Vargas. We will see you at NAMS. We're actually going to be releasing this around NAMS. So, we're going to pump you up so I don't know, maybe people will be flocking to you at NAMS. I don't know, maybe. So you might need a little bodyguard or something.
Yeah, hang out the pink food.
Might be asked for some autographs. I don't know. But I just thank you for being here, and I wish you the best. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Same here. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Woo, that was a whole lot of tea. Who knew doctors had more drama than reality TV?
And if you think that was wild, just wait till next week. We've got more stories, more scandals, and more credentialing chaos coming your way.
And if you love the tea, please don't keep it to yourself. Like to show us you're listening. Please comment and join the conversation, and follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, share so everyone else can sip with us.
Yeah, so see you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Stay credentialed, not canceled.